back to the 2-Minute Warning. It's been a minute. Jay and I are back talking NFL playoffs. They're finally here. There's going to be a bunch of games this weekend, but today talking about the Raiders-Bengals game. A really exciting matchup. The Raiders really had a crazy season. It's even a wonder why or how they're in the playoffs. And then, of course, Joe Burrow and the Bengals also been fantastic. So we're going to be previewing that game. Before we get into it, question of the day, talking obviously an AFC matchup. Who do you guys think is going to win the AFC? Drop it down below in the comments, and you'll hear our predictions at the end of the video. But, Jay, what comes to mind when you think about this matchup?
I think as long as you're not a Bengals or Raiders fan yourself, I think this is a game everyone's just kind of rooting for either of the guys. You either like Derek Carr and the underdog story and just how they shouldn't be there, or you like the young and up-and-coming potential with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So this is a game I think everyone's kind of rooting for one of these teams to go on into the long run, all the way possibly if they get a shot, just because no one really counted them in at the beginning of the season. But breaking it down, who is the better team? I would say the Bengals have less chaos, but does that even matter at this point? I would argue that it doesn't. If you broke it down for me, I think you could pick your poison with the quarterbacks, Derek Carr, Joe Burrow, really just who wants it more, who has a better day. But receiving room, I'd say the Bengals are more stable. I'd say the ground game and the run game, Joe Mixon's a little more reliable. The defense, kind of like the quarterback. You can pick your day. You want Trey Hendrickson, you want Mad Max, and then in the secondaries, I would probably lean towards the Bengals, but it's a tough one. None of them have playoff experience. You know, Derek Carr is by far considered the veteran quarterback here. He has numbers and numbers and years on Joe Burrow. But playoff experience, they both got 0. So it's going to be a good game. Bengals are, of course, at home. I would lean towards the Bengals, but I cannot count out the Raiders and say confidently that the Bengals are going to come away with the win.
Yeah, I guess I want to first talk about Derek Carr. Arguably, two of the best games of the season were an early matchup against Derek Carr versus the Ravens, where he wins in overtime. Yep. And then the last regular season game of the season where Derek Carr wins in a crazy game against the Chargers. And I would definitely agree that the Bengals have the better roster. I would have said that confidently against the Chargers the last game of the season when it was win or get in, that the Chargers had a better roster for sure. But something about Derek Carr, he just refuses to lose, and that's what I'm going to look for this game. Like I said, those two games come to mind, but there's been games against, I think he went to overtime against Miami, and he somehow won a late game in the season against the Colts that he shouldn't have. So they find a way to fight and stay in contention for wins in every situation. And I really like them going into this game because they're definitely the underdogs. They're on the road, but it's Derek Carr, and he just finds ways to make things happen for this team. And on the Bengals side of the football, Joe Burrow is playing just as good as really any quarterback in the AFC right now. And Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are giving him some of the best weapons. So this is going to be a great matchup. And like you said, unless you're a fan of either of these teams, this is going to be the game you're going to want to watch. It's going to be, okay, I shouldn't say it's going to be. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think both teams are going to go back and forth. And it's going to be very likely, I think, going to be a last drive game or an overtime game because both these teams are going to be going at it all day.
Yeah, and we should mention they did play before, and the Bengals kind of dominantly won.
That was early season, Derek Carr. Late season apparently is totally different.
If you watched any part of last year, you know regular season doesn't matter. Bucks and Saints, for example, look what happened come postseason. So I'm not taking that too much into account, but if you're just looking for another variable or comparison to try and consider, that is something. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm rooting for both these guys. I really like Joe Burrow's potential. I think he's got great potential, and I'm just the underdog story for Derek Carr. And I think almost Darren Waller isn't being talked about enough.
Not at all.
He's a top 3 tight end. You could argue top 2, top 1. Make your argument. That's a whole other video to talk about.
And coming off of an injury, and his presence against the Chargers was minimal, even though it's such a big win for that team. And I would be looking for him to do something here.
Yeah, I do think he's going to come out better. And that if the Raiders are kind of overcompensating for that, then Hunter Renfrow is going to bite you in the butt. And then Deshaun Jackson, I believe he's still on the roster. He could come out a 70-yard touchdown, but the exact same thing can happen with Jamar Chase. Big plays there, Joe Mixon on the ground. That's kind of how they dominantly won versus the Raiders. Joe Mixon. I think this will be a passing type of game, but we'll see.
Yeah, you say that, I do agree. Josh Jacobs did have a huge game against the Chargers, and one of the big reasons why they even won that game, that last run to put him in field goal range. But that's besides the point. I think moving forwards past this game, the Bengals do have a better chance to do something, and in an AFC that I just don't want to see the Chiefs win again. I almost want to root for Cincinnati because I think they can do more in the long run.
We've seen them beat the Chiefs, and the Raiders got spanked by the Chiefs twice.
Yep. So, and we saw the Cincinnati team beat a late season Chiefs that are that are the real Chiefs, not the first 5 weeks where they were losing over half the games that they played. So anyway, but again, I'd use the same logic against the Chargers that I wanted the Chargers to win because I think they could do more in the playoffs, but the Raiders are here. And I do think that a lot of people are not giving them enough credit because of their coaching situation, and they lose Henry Ruggs, and they just have just a weird roster, but I do think they have the pieces to actually move on. So I do expect the Raiders to definitely put up a great game against a team that they should be outmatched against.
Yeah, no matter what, I'm kind of going to be disappointed that one of these guys had to go home in their first playoff experience, but I am rolling with the Bengals all in all.
You think so? I think I'm going to go. This is mostly because I think I want to see Derek Carr win, but I just think that the Raiders seem to refuse to lose. I brought this up earlier, but they're just such an improbable roster that continues to win football games. And I do think that it's going to be I think it's going to be a shootout game, and I think it's going to be won on a late field goal by Daniel Carlson, who refuses to miss.
Just like the Chargers.
Yeah, but this one's going to be on the road, and they kept saying that he's perfect at home, but the dude can kick field goals. So that's really all for the matchup. It's going to be exciting, so make sure you tune in. This is the early game on Saturday, and then there's going to be a Bills-Patriots game Saturday night. But, Jay, back to the question of the day, who's going to win the AFC?
Until they don't come out of the AFC, until they're not in the Super Bowl, I got to go with Mahomes and the Chiefs.
I'm gonna go with either Kansas City or Cincinnati. I think if Cincinnati wins this game, they get some momentum against a very good Raiders team, and then they move on. If I was gonna pick who I'd want to see win the AFC, I want to see Tennessee do it. Tannehill's been there. He's been to the championship twice, I think.
At least once.
But that time he lost to Mahomes, and maybe he's been back again. But I want to see Tannehill finally get there. They're gonna have Derrick Henry back, so that's who I would want to see. But I think it's going to be ultimately going to be Kansas City or Cincinnati. Those are my two picks, but probably Kansas City. That's all for the video, guys. Thanks for